Good evening, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining us live from New York City. This is not Saturday Night Live, but this is the UCAN Talk Show. I'm your host, Varun Sriram, joined as always by our registered dietitian, director of nutrition, Seth Bronheim. Seth, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing awesome, Varg. Doing awesome.
All righty, that sounds great. Well, we are going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour chatting all things UCAN with you. We got a ton of fantastic questions. We want to bring you on live. We want to chat with you live. This webinar is really for all you guys here in attendance. So, couple logistical things before we get going. If you do want to come on and chat live with us, you do have a questions tab on the GoToWebinar app. Feel free to give us a shout. Let us know. We'll be happy to bring you on live, or even if you just rather chat your question to us, we can take it that way. But again, this is all about helping you figure out how to use UCAN based on your goals. So that's what we are here for today. And Seth, I want to get kind of right into it. We had a lot of different questions ranging from using UCAN for running, for triathlon, for just daily use, weight management. And to get us started, a lot of the questions coming in did pertain to running. So as runners and endurance athletes, there's always been kind of a variety of things that people have been told to use in terms of carbohydrates for fuel. Your more simple carbohydrates, your breads, your pastas, your energy gels with sugar. Kind of talking about the traditional method of fueling for exercise. What is the issue with a lot of these more simple carbohydrates?
Well, at the end of the day, they're simply fast acting. I mean, that's the biggest one. How
Seth, I'm
your blood
sorry. I'm
sugar
gonna have
and
to
just enter by itself.
cut you off for just a minute. You're coming in a little bit choppy, so maybe do me a favor and see if you want to dial in. I could definitely handle this while we get going, but coming in a little choppy. See if you want to call back in by phone, and we'll give it a look and see how it goes. But while Seth's doing
Okay.
that, I wanted to just kind of to address what Seth's saying. If you look at the chart on the screen, you really see the effect of these simple carbohydrates. And when we talk simple, fast-acting carbohydrates, we're talking, traditional foods like your breads, your pastas, your bagels, even a perceived healthy food like a banana. The calories and the carbohydrate, they enter your body and they enter your system very quickly. So when we talk about blood sugar, which is something we're going to get to over and over and over again over the course of this session, really what we're referring to is the way a carbohydrate enters your bloodstream. So if a carbohydrate enters your bloodstream very quickly, you're going to get that sugar spike. Now, of course, what goes up, it must come down. And that's the same with blood sugar. When you get that big sugar spike, your blood sugar eventually, and for a lot of people, it's within 20 minutes, within 30 minutes, it's going to drop. When you start to get that big drop in your blood sugar, that's kind of a trigger for a lot of things. It's a trigger to your body that to feel fatigue. You start to feel that haziness in your brain. Your body starts to process certain stress hormones or produce, excuse me, and it's really
Barney,
not
hear
ideal.
me now?
There you go, Seth. Perfect. So this is kind of your forte. So I was just kind of identifying what happens when you get that big rise and drop in blood sugar. So, we talked about it in the context of your simple carbs like your breads, your bagels. So even the traditional kind of sports nutrition fuels that people are using, how are these impacting blood sugar levels?
Well, they're even worse. They're very rapid. I think the bottom line is that a gel or a sports drink, it's really the way these were created. When you go back to the reasons they were created, they were more rescue items. It was more like you wait till you're at mile 8 until you're feeling fatigued. You grab that gel and it raises you back up. But if you're coming into that gel fatigued, or your blood sugar is dropping, that means that probably at least a mile or two before you weren't at your optimal tempo or your optimal speed, and that's why the highs and lows in blood sugar are really poor for you, because so much of your fatigue is tied into your waves in your blood sugar.
And it's a little bit ironic, Seth, where when you talk about that so many people today, they're having a banana 25 or 30 minutes before they get out the door. They're having a gel, based on what these products recommend, about 15 to 20 minutes prior to their run. And you're really putting yourself in a situation where 15 or 20 minutes into your workout, you're causing fatigue because you're causing the sugar drop, right?
Right. I mean, it's unreal that if you have a fast if you have half a Gatorade or if you have a banana, I mean, you'll feel great for maybe 10 minutes, and then maybe 20 minutes at most, and then you start to decline a little bit. And some folks dig deep and they grind through it, but it's just not a healthy way to fuel. You're causing a cascade of stress hormones in the body. It's just not ideal, especially when most people want to exercise to be healthy at some point. At the same time as trying to improve their race time or get faster.
So, what is UCAN, offering from an energy delivery standpoint that's so different to this fast-acting approach to fueling?
Well, it's that you can release this steadily over time. It's keeping your blood sugar stable, uh, and that's really the difference. It's not just that it's low glycemic. People look at things like oatmeal and say, "Oh, that's supposed to be complex." I mean, technically, maltodextrin is a complex carbohydrate, yet you still see it raises your blood sugar a lot. I think the nomenclature that complex means long lasting, it's over because we've shown that even things could be complex like just wheat bread, for example, but they're not going to stabilize your blood sugar. Do a blood sugar test, and you'll see quite clearly that this is not the best way to stabilize your blood sugar. Speaking of blood sugar tests, this is really what we're talking about here. This is our blood sugar curve from our trials comparing UCAN versus maltodextrin, which is the popular carb in so many of today's sports drinks and sports gels. And UCAN's this red line. You see, we're giving little bits of energy over time, really matching the rate your brain and your muscles want to receive calories, uh, and it's keeping you steady. That's the idea, is that a serving of UCAN can last you at least 8 miles to sometimes up to 12 miles. So you're refueling less and you're releasing steadily over time, which is causing you not to have those fluctuations in blood sugar. You don't get low, so you don't have to take a gelin anymore.
So, as we talk about this method of energy delivery and how paramount keeping your blood sugar steady is to keeping your energy steady, how does this change the way that people have always thought about energy? There's such this notion of thinking about energy and fueling in the context of calories. I'm burning X number of calories, so I need to replace with X number of calories. And we see this a lot in the endurance and the ultra endurance world. We have triathletes thinking in terms of 250 to 400 calories per hour. What should people be focusing on more so than purely calories for the sake of calories?
I think first off, if you can't just give a general guideline like 200 to 400 calories per hour because everybody's body type is different. Um, and I think the bottom line is you should first, take care of your getting in shape and your blood sugar levels. And then after that, you can figure out how many calories you technically need per hour. Because if you can burn more fat as fuel, your internal body fat calories, that means you don't need as many incoming calories into your body. And usually, the better in shape someone is, the better they are at burning fat during exercise. It's one of the adaptations to running and endurance, especially. So, so if you need 6 gels to get through a marathon, it's simply a blood sugar issue, not a getting in shape issue.
So we started off a little bit with running, Seth, and I know we're going to come back to running, but I want to kind of take a larger view at this, and then we'll get into several of the specific questions that we have pertaining to different, specific uses of UCAN. But from a very general purpose, what UCAN is a slow burning carbohydrate that in the super starch that you see here, it's a slower burning carbohydrate that keeps your blood sugar steady. And we'll certainly talk about the ingredient here in a little bit. But we had a lot of questions about kind of the best times to use something like UCAN. And when people ask the best time to use UCAN, they're essentially in a way asking, what is the best time for me to keep my blood sugar stable? When do people want to keep their blood sugar stable?
Well, I first want to point one thing out, but because the answer is almost all the time. But in terms of this being a slow burning carb, everybody out there, that doesn't mean that you can't use this for speed workouts or sprinting. It's really the way this releases. A lot of people think, oh, it's burned slowly, must be only good for long runs or for long workouts. I mean, the fact is we've got folks using this for 30-minute speed workouts, um, track workouts and just simply high intensity weight training workouts. So the word slow doesn't mean only for a slow jog. Just want to get it out there. We've had a lot of people ask that, and just wanted to say that. So
That's
in
Seth.
terms of
That's a good point because you just took my next question. We had several people kind of asking about the application for high intensity exercise, the application for resistance training. I'm glad you brought that up. We'll dive into that more deeply. But yeah. So on your point of something that keeps your blood sugar stable, or specifically to UCAN, when is the times to use it and the best times to use it?
I mean, it's really in terms of working out, it's 20 minutes before you exercise. But I'm talking about even that hour workout. Everybody out there, I know you got to try UCAN for that 6 mile run. You don't have to save it for that 10 mile run. It's such a key point because your output is so correlated to keeping your blood sugar steady and UCAN keeps your blood sugar steady in two ways that we talk about really just the incoming carbohydrate keeping you steady. But the real truth is that the more fat you can burn as energy, which is what UCAN also does, it allows you to burn more fat as energy during your workouts. That also means you're preserving your blood sugar because if you can burn more fat, it means you preserve your blood sugar, and that means you're burning through less sugar. So that's really we're a dual fuel. We're a two-pronged approach, which is why you stay so steady during your workouts. It's the way UCAN affects your energy and your physiology, not just that the carb itself keeps your blood sugar stable.
So, Seth, you talked a little bit about the application and the idea that UCAN allows your body to burn more fat. And when people hear that, sometimes their antenna goes up. Both because it interests them, and sometimes they might put it in the camp of sometimes all these supplements you see advertised that stimulate certain enzymes allegedly, and should allow you to metabolize fat. But with UCAN, we're talking about something very, very different, right? And we had a gentleman asked a specific question about are there any studies that talk about how UCAN helps you burn more fat, and that's exactly what we're looking at right here. But I'd love for you to dive a little bit into that because I think it's something that kind of is important for people to understand why this is a carbohydrate that actually lets you burn fat. And so many people think of carbohydrates and they're trying to lose weight, and you hear people say I'm watching my carbs, or they might look at the ingredient label of UCAN and see 30 grams of carbs and say, hey, I'm trying to get lean. I don't need that many carbs. But why is this such a different carb?
So I think the main thing is, and I'll take us back to medical purposes because this was meant for a life-threatening disease. I mean, UCAN was meant for life-threatening hypoglycemia in kids that couldn't create blood sugar in their bodies. And so because it was meant for this, really emergency-like purpose, its properties are just very different in that it releases over time. We actually have the patent on a cooking method where we use non-GMO corn, but it's just cooked with heat and water. No enzymes, no chemicals. But the way our carbohydrate is cooked allows it to break down steadily over time instead of all at once into your body. So it's our cooking method that took around 8 years to develop that allows UCAN to act so uniquely. Again, there's no enzymes, no chemicals. I mean, it was meant for kids originally, but it's the way it releases. It's a steady release over time. So most of the time, the reason you stop burning fat is because your blood sugar spikes, or you've had a heavy meal where your insulin and your body's in storage mode. So you saw our red line where we're showing how we keep blood sugar steady. But then if you look, the next slide is really discussing our insulin response. And this is what's key because, insulin's a fat storage hormone. So if you see that blue line and you see the red line, the blue line is showing a spike in insulin from maltodextrin, the classic carbohydrate and, all your popular sports nutrition brands today. But the same spike you'll get is after a bagel, a breakfast cereal, your lunch, sandwich and chips style lunch, and even a heavy calorie meal. You'll get insulin rise and you put your body in storage mode, and that's telling your body to store the nutrients away as fat or in other parts of your body like your glycogen. So we're not a fat burner per se, in that we're not a stimulant like you see in the sports nutrition stores. We very much keep your insulin levels low, and this is a key point. When you keep your insulin levels low, you allow your body to use and break down fat as energy. When your insulin levels are high, your body keeps fat cells together and you can't burn fat. So, and that's because insulin's a storage hormone. So when it's low, your body's not in a storage mode. So during a workout itself, you're supposed to be able to burn fat. One of the ways you get in better shape is that you start burning more fat as fuel, and that's why you can go from running 5 miles in maybe in week one, but week 10 you're now running 12 miles. One of the adaptations is that you actually can burn more fat as fuel and not burn as many carbohydrates. But a lot of the products today spike your blood sugar and cause you to burn sugar and not really tap into that adaptation. So UCAN's keeping your insulin low, and so we're allowing you to access your huge amount of fat stores. I mean, even the leanest people like Meb, he's got 10,000 calories of fat in his body probably, but maybe only much smaller, only 2,000 calories of stored carbohydrate. He wants to tap into that fat so he can have longer lasting endurance.
All right, guys, and we should be back here. Sorry about that. If Seth, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, sorry. Don't know what happened there. Short technical difficulty. Apologize, everybody. I think just people can let me know in the chat if they can hear me. That would be great. But what I started to say is, we had a great question from Nancy who wanted to know actually about the ingredient. All right, looks like we're back on air, guys, and hopefully no more issues from here on out. So I'm going to see if I can bring Nancy on to ask her question about the actual ingredient. Nancy, how are you doing tonight? Are you there with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sure can. Can hear you well.
Hello?
Go ahead, Nancy. What's your question?
The one I just sent in?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I wanted to know if it's considered, I've been reading stuff about resistant starches, and if it is, what's the difference between the potato starch, which is supposed to be a resistant starch, and that brown rice starch?
Fantastic question. Nancy, there's a tiny bit of background noise. I'm going to put you on mute, but great question. So for anybody that couldn't hear, Nancy wanted to know what's the difference between UCAN and resistant starches and something like a potato starch or a brown rice starch. So Seth, go ahead.
So UCAN is actually has properties of a resistant starch. The difference is that resistant starches aren't absorbed into your body. They very much function more like a dietary fiber. Think about a cup of broccoli or Metamucil type products. So UCAN has resistant starch properties in the structure of the carbohydrate. The difference is that it's absorbed into your bloodstream. We give you energy, whereas other resistant starches simply pass through your intestines and aren't absorbed. And that's why we're so great for exercise and in general, we're a resistant starch that's actually absorbing into your body and allowing you to have energy versus just simply more acting like a fiber. That's the difference. We are absorbed as energy, whereas other resistant starches are not.
Excellent. So I hope that answers your question, Nancy. She also had something specifically pertaining to triathlon, which we'll get into here in just a few minutes. But Seth, let's speak about UCAN as we started to, kind of in the context of workouts. And this might be a good time to identify there were several questions about the different, the different products and where they fit in and when to use them all. So in the context of UCAN for workouts, what do people really want to be doing? How should they use the product, and which UCAN product, as we see them all here on the screen, should they be using?
So I'll start off with the snack bar since it's our newest product, and I actually tested my blood sugar with the snack bar for and I was extremely steady for an hour and a half, which is exactly what you want for certain workouts. For anybody who likes blood sugar response, I was 93 milligrams per deciliter. That was my starting point with my blood sugar. In the first half an hour, I went up to 97 milligrams per deciliter. That makes it one of the lowest glycemic snacks. I only went up 4 milligrams per deciliter, whereas most other products, you're getting a much bigger spike. Think of your Cliff Bar type products and those. UCAN snack bar, I stayed at that between 93 and that 97 and 98 period for an hour and a half. So I was extremely steady. I like testing my blood sugar. I get to see the real data more on myself. And it makes it seem it's really the perfect product for running, especially for a shorter run. Think of your 4 or 5 mile run. It's going to curb hunger in the stomach before, and it's going to release over time. You'll feel steady. So that's the snack bar, and I think that's for your shortest runs. Now you could always use the UCAN fuel for all different types of efforts. The liquid absorption might be superior for you in terms of not feeling anything in your stomach. The snack bar I feel doesn't bother the stomach either, but you might feel a little bit more than the powder. Um, so I do a scoop of 20 minutes before you work out, 8 ounces of cold water. A key thing for anybody mixing our products is in a blender bottle, you want to put the water in first and the powder afterward. I know we were talking about this, bar, and just to make sure it mixes much better than when you put the powder in first, it can cake at the bottom.
It's a good point, and a couple practical applications. I think with any of the UCAN powders, certainly a shaker bottle, putting the water in first, that's going to help. And you really do want to shake it well. It's not going to dissolve. And we got a lot of questions and kind of comments leading up to this about people using UCAN, for triathlon and on the bike, and kind of commenting that it, after a few hours while with it sitting there on the bike, there was some settling that went on. So, with that, we simply just recommend try to give it a shake before you get it back in. We have a lot of people even pre-mixing UCAN and refrigerating it the night before a run, and even in that situation, take it out in the morning, give it a good hard shake. Now, Seth, you started with the bar, and Ed in the chat mentioned something that I'm sure people have figured out, mentioning that with the chocolate coating in the bar, it does melt and heat. So we had a few people asking us, can the bar be used during exercise? And from a nutrient and a composition standpoint, I mean, absolutely. It's we've had a lot of people finding that it's very beneficial, on the bike or during a long run to just kind of have the bar cut up into pieces and to snack on it to help maintain that blood sugar and also with the protein, fiber, and fat to help curb some of that hunger you'll get during a long workout. So there certainly is the practical aspect of it melting. I had a gentleman, I was in Dallas this weekend, tell me that he's been freezing the bars overnight and taking them out on his runs with them, and has found that that's helped them hold up better to heat. So there's a little bit during the hotter months and figuring out that has to go along with
All
the
right.
bar if you plan to use it during exercise. But it is a good option if you can get the texture and the consistency correct.
Yeah, Bart, I think the bottom line is that there's some future products coming along, guys, that are going to solve all your issues. Just stay tuned.
Absolutely. We are looking at an uncoated bar in the hopefully near future. So that should solve a lot of those issues. Now, to go back to Nancy's question, one thing, Seth, just to highlight with the super starch, which again is really the key ingredient in UCAN. This is what's the slow burning carbohydrate that's maintaining blood sugar. And one of the important things to note is because the super starch was developed originally for medical purposes for our founder's son Jonah, who had life-threatening hypoglycemia. There was 8 years of research that went into the development of this carbohydrate, and they looked at everything, in an effort to see what stabilized blood sugar the longest. So this we're talking about pre-existing foods, other things considered to be low glycemic, like a sweet potato or different types of starches. And what sets super starch is really a 40-hour cooking process, a patented cooking process that we put it through. So the way this carbohydrate is cooked is actually what's significantly slowing the breakdown and the release and causing it to give you that slow and steady burn of energy to keep your blood sugar nice and even and to maintain your energy. So I just wanted to, again, highlight that because that's really why, there may be a lot of other things that position themselves as slow burning or other types of starches that you might see on the market that talk about the maintenance of blood sugar. But this really was shown when every type of carbohydrate was evaluated to maintain blood sugar and maintain steady energy more effectively than anything else. So as we kind of closed out the discussion on running, Seth, and move on to the next topic, when we're talking about training, how should people view UCAN when they're training, say, for a half marathon or a marathon? And I want to start with training. I think so many people think about race day, but UCAN is really a training tool to help you get more fit. And I don't want to say we don't want you using UCAN on race day, but we almost don't mind what you use on race day. Really the training period is where you're going to get the full benefit of UCAN. So how should people view it in their training?
Very, very much so. Having it a scoop before your shorter workouts, but knowing that by preserving your glycogen, by teaching your body to better burn fat, you'll have a better response in your longer workouts. So a scoop's good for an hour or less. If you're going out for a 2-hour workout or longer, do 2 scoops before And it's very simple. Every 60 to 90 minutes, have a scoop. Don't sip on it. Really try to get it down within a 10 or 15-minute time period, like you would a food, not a sports drink. Um,
And Seth, just to stay on that point, again, something that we were having a lot of questions come in on is why do we recommend not sipping on UCAN and consuming it like a food? What's the reason behind that?
because this you want this absorbed into your body. You don't need to be sipping on it's not because it's not a sports drink. This is not your typical carbohydrate. It shouldn't be consumed like your typical sports drink. It's got a different purpose. Um, you want this in your intestines getting broken down into your bloodstream. You don't want to be sipping on a few grams here, a few grams there. You really want it to, and I'm not saying don't chug this, every hour, not every 60 to 90 minutes. I'm just saying don't nurse this and sip on it like a hydration beverage. We've got something else for that. Um, or you can't hydrate. So I think the bottom line is that you want to get this in probably within a at most 30-minute time period. But it's not your sip-on product. That's our hydration blend. This is your fuel source, and it should be consumed like a fuel source.
So great, great. That's a great point. Because the idea of sipping on something sugar based is that it's going to give you that kind of that quick blast of energy, and then your blood sugar is going to inevitably drop, and then you're going to need to do it again. But with UCAN, it's almost like you're not going to kind of eat a portion of a sweet potato every 25, 30 minutes. And so, and Seth, to speak to that point, I mean, um, like you said, if people, they don't need to think that, oh my gosh, I have to chug this whole thing. You can really, in the context of running, drink it over the course of a mile. In the context of being on the bike over the course of 10 or 15 minutes, you can kind of have a serving over a relatively short period of time. It's just don't, when we say you can every 75 to 90 minutes, you're not sipping on that one serving over the period of 90 minutes and then starting to sip on another serving. Now, what we have seen some folks do, for though, if for whatever reason you just find that you do better taking in little bits of UCAN at a time, we just recommend you get a substantial amount in you at once. So if you don't want to have that full, serving that full packet of UCAN every 75 to 90 minutes, then what you could do is really have half that packet every 45 minutes, So you still just want to make sure that when you're having it, you're kind of getting 10 or 15 grams of the super starch in you over a relatively short period of time. And then we've had people have success with it in that method. So that was one thing, Seth, that as it came up, I wanted to bring up. But go ahead, in terms of using UCAN in your training, what else should people be thinking about?
So I think if there's one time to use this, it's before you train. Um, and I really would discuss this being used for, your hour workouts. And then I would think about, post workout, if it's going to be an hour or more, I would definitely consider the UCAN post workout because when you have the protein enhanced UCAN, it's very much a way to recover without sugar. You're keeping your blood sugar balanced after a workout. You don't need to replenish your glycogen that quickly. Unless you're running later that day, it doesn't really make sense to try to get some faster acting carb in you. So I might do a scoop or a packet of UCAN protein post workout. The snack bar might also be a good way to get some blood sugar stabilization post workout. And then have a healthy meal probably an hour or two later, depending. And that's all flexible. That's up to you. Individualize it at that point. While we're on this slide, Barn, one thing we didn't talk about is really our hydration blend, and it's pretty key because when we're keeping your blood sugar steady, we're working so hard on maintaining your energy. The last thing we need is for an electrolyte imbalance to cause an energy drop. And we came out with an electrolyte product with the exact ratio of electrolytes you lose when you sweat, but really to support you on a mineral that's very important, magnesium. We added, double the serving of most products. Most have around 15 to 25 milligrams. We have 50. And that's really key because magnesium is actually a cofactor in creating energy in your body. So we want to make sure you have adequate portions of this mineral so you're healthy and you can have better energy production while you're running. And there's no artificial preservatives. And we got a new flavor coming soon.
Seth, we're going to try to bring on this topic as we're talking about the amount and how the frequency of dosing. I believe it's Alexis, or it's spelled Alecis, but we're going to try to bring Alexis on and see if we can share some feedback. You with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
We sure can. And let me pronounce your name correctly. What is your name?
Alicia.
Oh, Alicia. Okay, I guess when you signed up, it might have came in differently. So we've got Alicia, excuse me, with us, who has some feedback to share about the Boston Marathon and what exactly she did with UCAN. So go ahead, Alicia.
Oh, sure. So I started using UCAN, and this was I was actually just typing a note into the host here saying that I started using this product about a year ago in triathlons because I was having so many digestive issues with sugar-based products, other sugar-based products, and I found this one that my system reacted very well to UCAN, and so I started using it for half Ironmans, and then I ran the Boston Marathon back in April, and I decided to use this product because I had been training with it, and so I took a serving of one scoop serving before running the Boston Marathon, and then after an hour, I had I wore a fuel belt and had 2 bottles with 8 ounces of water, and I mixed a double scoop of UCAN in each bottle, and every 45 minutes after an hour, I took 4 ounces of the fluid to get me through. I'm 53 years old, and so I ran like a 3:45
Wow.
marathon. So that was enough to get me through. And I tell you, the first time ever, even in training, I never felt like I was going to hit the wall. I never felt like I wasn't going to finish, and I completely attribute that to this product. I'm a firm believer in it, and I just wanted to join to see if I could learn anything else about how to use it for my triathlon training as well. So I'm just I'm hooked on this product. I love it.
That's fantastic, Alicia. And, I think we're going to get to triathlon in a moment. Now, just from a logistical standpoint, I'm going to put an image up on the screen, but I'd love to hear what you did because we have so many people asking us, as part of this chat about the logistics of making a UCAN gel, how you mixed it, what you carried it in. You can see here on the screen we have a few pictures of what, some other folks have done. But what exactly did you do to kind of get it to that more thick consistency? You said you were mixing 2 scoops, which is about 160 calories in an 8-ounce bottle, and you had 2 of those bottles with you. So you're basically running a 3:45, and you consumed 320 calories of UCAN during. What did you do?
Well, I really just mixed it very simply. I took 8 ounces of water and I put 1 scoop in to begin with, and I shook that up real well so I could get it mixed. Because as you said, it's very thick. And after I got that mixed well, I just put another scoop in the same bottle. Of course, I mixed it like in a I took maybe a 16-ounce water bottle, which is how I mixed it together, so that I could get enough where I could shake it and get it blended well, and then I just poured it in little fuel belt bottles so it was just water and UCAN, period. That was all I did, and it was perfectly enough. I'm 100 like a 115 pound female, so that was, I mean, the calories were perfect. I mean, it just worked great.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Lisa. Glad we were able to solve some of those GI issues, and but more importantly, congrats to you. 3:45. What a phenomenal time, and really appreciate you coming on and sharing that. Very helpful. So thank you. So, getting onto that point of mixing UCAN, I think one of the points that Alicia just brought up, which is important just from a logistical convenience standpoint, is that because UCAN is a starch, really it's going to be easier to mix it if you put it in a bottle that you can shake it well in. So, for any of you trying to make a UCAN gel, it might seem like an obvious and simple thing, but instead of trying to siphon the UCAN into your small little flask or your small little fuel belt bottle, doing what she did and mixing it in a larger bottle and then transferring it over to a smaller bottle. That's really the way to go. That's going to help you really get it mixed up well. Now, what you can see on the screen, this is what somebody actually submitted to our Facebook page recently. And what she did is she actually added like just for taste, 2 small strawberries to the cranberry raspberry UCAN. She put it all in a bowl, mashed up the strawberries, and then just kind of kept adding water and stirring it vigorously until she got it smoothed out to the consistency that she liked. And then, there's a variety of different options to carry it. There's the fuel belt bottles, which are kind of standard that come on the hydration belts that are the fuel belts that many different companies offer. There's something that there's a picture of here called a soft flask made by the brand Hydropack that a lot of people have had success with because it's just easier to squeeze. The texture of the bottle actually isn't as rigid, so you can squeeze it and get the UCAN to come out. We have people going old school and being creative and using a Ziploc baggie. We've had people use resealable food pouches if you just want something that you can stick in your shorts. So really the carrying device, there are a few different options, but in terms of the amount of water you mix it with, it's really up to you, based on what yields the best taste and consistency in your eyes. And Seth, when people think about gels, the sugar-based, the host of sugar-based gels or maltodextrin-based gels that are out there, they recommend chasing the gel with, certain amount of fluid to help with digestion. But with UCAN, the amount of fluid you mix it with doesn't at all impact digestion. Why is that the case?
Well, it's just because this is a food again. The carbohydrate moves rapidly through your stomach, so it's not heavily concentrated the way a sugar is. So you don't need a certain amount of fluid. Most people, just because it's in a paste form, they want to chase with some water, and that's again all individual. You figure out the amount of water you need, but we don't have a specific recommendation on what to chase the gel with because you'll figure it out. You can figure it out based on your needs.
So exactly, like you said, Seth, chasing it with water is simply just if you feel like you want to get, it's kind of that water taste back in your mouth, but it doesn't impact at all the way the product digests. Let's transition a little bit to triathlon. We've got Ed, who has had a lot of success. He mentioned with UCAN for Ironman distance triathlon. So I want to bring Ed on and let him share some of his thoughts, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into the use of UCAN for triathlon. Ed, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me fine?
We sure can, Ed. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great. And Seth, it's nice to see that you're still with UCAN. I saw your guys in Raleigh last year. So they told me I'm single-handedly keeping UCAN in the plain UCAN business. So unfortunately, it's the only UCAN that I can stomach, and it's taken a while, but I actually have learned to love the flavor of it.
So tell us a little bit, Ed, about what you've been doing, maybe why you started using UCAN initially, and what you've been doing with it for triathlon, for both training and racing.
For sure, and I use UCAN almost daily, like you guys were talking about. If I go for my swim practice in the morning, I'll take a scoop before I go. But I just have had huge digestive issues over the years, and I haven't found anything that, I've tried everything. I can name you all the brands that I've tried that were supposed to work fine and everything, but UCAN was finally the one thing that I could actually take through the entire race and did not have any GI issues. The other thing which I completely loved about it is that I don't actually have to stuff all my pockets full of all kinds of different bars and goos and bagels and potatoes and anything else that everybody else is trying. So on the bike, I mix a bottle concentrated. So for a scoop of UCAN for every hour that I think I'm going to be on the bike, mix it up with water. And then for the run, in my run transition, I've got 2 small flasks that I got from another vendor that I don't use their product anymore. And they fit perfectly into my tri-suit, and they're about 4 or 5 ounces each, and I just mix 2 or 3 scoops of UCAN with a little bit of water in there. It does separate a little bit, so you do have to shake it, but that completely takes me through the entire 11, 12, 13 hours of the Ironman, and I'll take the chicken soup when it comes out if I'm not off the course, but other than that, I'm pretty much self-sufficient other than water.
Ed, have you gotten, are you much of and the reason I ask you this is because I know this is the way people think a lot, are you much of a calorie counter or a calorie per hour guy? And if you are, have you had any kind of comparison point where you've seen what you were ingesting prior to UCAN and what you're ingesting now with UCAN, just in terms of calories?
I've gone on different diets over the years trying to maintain my system, even off training. and gone to high fat, low carb, and gluten free, and like the whole gamut. And I know that there are some, and I do a lot of reading on the topics, but there are some people suggesting that you need like 700 to 1,000 calories per hour for Ironman, which is like completely absurd. Um,
Wow,
and
700 to 1,000. I've most commonly heard 400. I didn't realize people were trying to overdo it that much.
but it's I actually do not count calories at all. My biggest problem in my day is that I do not consume enough calories because I should be like at a 5,000 calorie consumption, and I'm nowhere near that on a daily basis. But I just, I don't count the calories in terms of how many calories do I consume on the bike. I just have figured out that because I'm actually on a diet that encourages my body to use fat for fuel, that I actually don't even need to go to the scoop per hour. I could go less than that and still survive, or not survive, but like do really well without any bonks or any like low points in the runs.
Well, fantastic, Ed. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your feedback. Thanks for supporting the Plain UCAN. That's great, and happy that the product's working so well and that you've eliminated GI issues. So that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
don't get rid of the plane because I actually can't stomach the other stuff. So
No worries, Ed. We will never get rid of the Plain UCAN. It's the and for those of you guys, we didn't have it on the chart, but the Plain UCAN is essentially just the super starch, just the carbohydrate. So. Seth, as we're talking about getting into triathlon a little bit, a couple questions people have, common questions is kind of how do they think about UCAN and how do they think about their hydration and their electrolytes, and even down to the standpoint of carrying both. So, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is if you're before the swim during triathlon, you know, you'd have 2 scoops before you get on the bike. You can have a 20-ounce bottle, throw 3 scoops in there, have a third of it every 60 to 90 minutes. Your other bottle could be our UCAN Hydrate. Put around 3 sticks in 2 or 3 sticks in there. You have your UCAN serving each hour to 90 minutes. You're sipping on your hydration blend, throughout, like you can sip on a typical hydration blend. Um, and that's the bike. And then I think what most folks are doing is that they're using fuel flasks, in fuel belt bottle, a 10-ounce bottle. They're putting 1 or 2 scoops in there depending on how concentrated they want to make the UCAN. And they're having usually a serving probably every 8 miles is just a good guideline during a full marathon. Or if it's a shorter distance, you might just do UCAN right off the bike and then maybe halfway through your run. You'll have to experiment, but that's the whole point. When you use UCAN during your training and your longer workouts, you really get to figure out how long it's lasting you to figure out what the best to do is on race day.
And to reiterate what Seth said, even though UCAN, people sometimes they think of it because UCAN's a drink, they say, oh great, this is just going to double as my hydration. I'll just kind of sip on UCAN. But really, we found people having the most success keeping their hydration completely separate. So, there's a guy, Matt Bach, quite a strong local triathlete, or not local triathlete, but he's in New Jersey. But Matt is an amateur triathlete, but he won Ironman Maryland 8:51:19 iron, and really did it primarily on UCAN, just about 94 calories per hour of UCAN. And what Matt was really doing was exactly that, concentrating several scoops of the lemonade UCAN in one bottle, so it was getting a little bit thicker texture, and then every 75 minutes or so, he would take in that serving of UCAN. But then separately, he'd have his hydration and his electrolytes, sugar-free electrolytes, so that he's just sipping on it as on an as-need basis. Excuse me. And then somebody asked, how do you incorporate the hydration product for triathlon, and are salt tabs needed in addition? The UCAN Hydrate, it has 350 milligrams of sodium, 100 milligrams of potassium, 50 milligrams of magnesium per serving. So, the UCAN Hydrate is really your salts, while the fuel products, the UCAN with the super starch, has electrolytes in it as well. The hydration is really going to take care of your salt needs. So that's the product you can use, and you're not going to be needing to supplement with additional salt. Seth, another question, just a gentleman asked, he said, I used to use 3 gels an hour for a 70.3, started using UCAN 3 months ago, looking for 3 scoops per hour for Ironman mid August. Is that too much? And I think what this gentleman's probably thinking, which, I can understand why you might, is 3 gels per hour is 300 calories, 3 scoops of UCAN is, roughly about 240 calories. So what do you say there? How should people, if they are still kind of thinking from a calorie standpoint, how should they initially approach UCAN in their training?
Well, I think again, most people during the week, are working out maybe at most 2 hours, right? And but most people do, most triathletes I speak to, they're doing 45 minutes on a Wednesday night, um, up to an hour and a half. So I'd start using a scoop to up to 2 scoops, depending on how long you're going during the week. Just get a base on using it for your training. That's, an hour to 2 hours, and then you can really start to see how it would affect you. But 3 scoops per hour is too much. It's just not necessary. Um, so I would probably do at most like a scoop and a half per hour, um, if you really wanted to get there. But I think the bottom line is the more you use UCAN for your training, the better you'll realize you need less calories, and that's just what starts to happen. But you have to give it some time. And if you're someone who's used to that high intake of gels, or you know that guideline of 400 calories per hour, you might want to take 2 weeks to transition. Slowly wean yourself off your gels, your goos, or your sugar-based drinks, and incorporate UCAN with it. So you might have UCAN a scoop before a 3-hour workout on a Saturday. You'd still have your gels during, and slowly just kind of take away a gel or reduce the serving size of your sugar-based fuel. And over the course of 2 weeks, you'll pretty much get to where you need to be.
And guys, let's listen very closely to what we're saying here for a minute. With so many of these sugar-based fuels, they're really encouraging a frequency of use. A gel 15 minutes before, 2 or 3 gels per hour. What Seth's actually telling you is the more you train with UCAN, the less of it you're going to need. So just kind of think about that, right? It's this is really something that's contributing to making you more efficient. We're not telling you load your body with sugar and then great, we'll sell more product because you have to keep doing it. It's really just a much healthier and more effective way to fuel. And as we've had two of our guests comment on, it's just so much easier on the stomach when you're not loading your body with so much sugar and so many gels. And Seth, on the point of how much UCAN you need, the gentleman that had asked that question mentioned that he was 6 feet, 177 pounds. Stephen just asked the question. He said, I keep hearing 60 to 90 minutes. Is the difference based upon weight, level of exertion, or something else? So to speak to that point, how do you factor in the amount of UCAN you need based on your body weight, or should you be thinking about it, more in terms of something else rather than your weight?
It's to me the number one priority is exertion. Um, the more intense the workout, the more frequently you'll probably need UCAN, probably every 60 minutes versus 90. That might be probably the best way to go. Obviously, if there are some differences based on body weight. A 115-pound person will need less UCAN than a 200-pound person. Um, but I think if it's more intense, go every 60. If it's less intense, go every 90. But again, it's very individual. That's why we give this range of 60 to 90, because it just depends on the person. So I say, if you want to try out every 60, see how you feel, and go from there. You want to find the minimal effective dose.
And again, Seth, to that point, I mean, it's interesting, right? We have 115-pound female runners, using a packet of UCAN to fuel a 90-minute to 2-hour workout. We have 335-pound offensive linemen in the NFL using a packet of UCAN to fuel 90 minutes of competition, or 90 minutes of intense weight training. So that discrepancy there alone tells you that it's really much more about exertion and intensity than it necessarily is about weight. Now, an important point to mention is with UCAN, because it's going to take some time to break down and enter your system, you want to, again, we keep saying this, but it's so important to trial this in your training, especially for endurance exercise, because you don't want to wait until your blood sugar is feeling low, or you're feeling depleted to take that next serving of UCAN, because it's not a sugar that's going to give you kind of that instant gratification, but then again, make your blood sugar drop shortly thereafter, where you have to keep getting that instant gratification, right? So UCAN is much more something that you want to be ahead of. You want to get that serving in you 20 minutes before you need it. So you're not kind of relying on it to rescue you. Seth said this in a great way, but all these sugar-based fuels, they really should be treated as rescue products, not as the pillar of your training. So UCAN should be, or something that keeps your blood sugar stable, that should be the pillar of your training. That should be what you're always trying to achieve. And then you really resort to the sugars when, late in the race, when you just, for whatever reason, you feel like you don't want to take in more UCAN, or you get a little bit behind it and you need something to rescue you. That's really where you should be using and relying on the sugars. So we wanted to clarify that point. Now, Jason, Jason had a question. Can you add the hydrate to the same bottle as your UCAN fuel? So, Jason, you absolutely can. The only thing I would say there is, again, because you're not sipping on the super starch UCAN, the UCAN fuel products, you don't want to leave yourself to where you're only getting electrolytes in every 60 to 90 minutes when you're taking UCAN. So if you feel like you want additional salt because you're a heavy sweater, because you're prone to cramping, you feel like you want additional electrolytes every time you take in that dose of UCAN fuel, then certainly add the electrolytes to it, but also keep just plain electrolytes in a separate bottle so you're able to sip on it on an as-need basis. Let's see. We have another question kind of with Ken talking about this whole endurance aspect of things. Ken wants to know, how much carbs can you eat? And I assume he's talking about simple carbs or sugars, and still have UCAN work. And Seth, we had a lot of people kind of emailing us in before this session asking us how they should, can they combine agave with UCAN? How should they treat mixing in simple sugars with UCAN? Is there any rule of thumb that you've kind of gone by?
I mean, I think that the fact is that you could have for example, a bagel with peanut butter, 2 hours before a long run, and then have UCAN 30 minutes before. I think in terms of stabilizing blood sugar, UCAN works with, UCAN will always keep your blood sugar steady. If you combine UCAN with other faster acting carbs for a period of time, it's transient. It's for a 30 or 60-minute period during your exercise, you might shift more toward burning carbs than fats. So on a baseline, you always get the blood sugar stabilization. The fat utilization will decrease a little bit depending on how much extra carb you're taking in. If you're combining UCAN as a breakfast shake or during the day, just try to limit it to less than 10 grams of sugar from other products, so it's only a small amount of sugar that you're adding. That might come from a half a banana or half a cup of berries, something like that. You're adding to it, and everybody's different. Some folks like to, counterintuitively add UCAN to their oatmeal, but it all depends. You can experiment and see if it has a good effect on you.
Now, what about foods that go well with UCAN or pre-race breakfast? What should people be thinking about when they're incorporating UCAN or pre-long training ride breakfast? What should people be thinking about in terms of what else they're eating in conjunction with UCAN?
I mean, you always just want to pair, some protein with some carb beforehand. If you're looking for something a little bit more substantial that you'd have to chew, you might do like, 2 eggs and, some, a scoop of UCAN on the side. A lot of people, you'll find that you will have much more stable blood sugar when you start your day with UCAN and some protein on the side. Then have another UCAN right before you start your race or your long run. If you want to go, a different route, you could always do an oatmeal, beforehand too with your eggs, and then have your UCAN before. Keep it flexible, depending on what your taste buds need that day.
So really, when you're eating breakfast, we're telling people stay away from this traditional, let me have a bagel and banana and UCAN, because UCAN is really your carbohydrate. UCAN is taking care of your energy. So if you're wondering what should I have for breakfast, you really want to focus on the nutrients that are going to curb hunger, which are proteins and fats. So that's why even if none of the specific choices that Seth gave resonated with you, just conceptually think of it where what you're eating should curb hunger, and simple carbohydrates just flat out do not curb hunger. They're going to put you on the blood sugar roller coaster and cause you to get more hungry. Seth, one of the first times you and I kind of chatted about this, I remember something you said to me that still sticks, which is like, most people can sit down and eat 4 or 5 slices of pizza, but it's hard for most people to sit down and eat 4 or 5 chicken breasts, and it really comes back to the effect that these simple carbohydrates and these breads have on your blood sugar.
Exactly, exactly. It's much tougher to overeat. It's much easier to overeat a bagel or a bag of chips than it is to eat 4 8-ounce pieces of salmon.
Now, Armando had a question. As we're talking about Ironman, he was looking at something called an Ultraman event, which is done in many stages and and it can often be even longer than Ironman. But just when we're talking about ultra events in general, does the frequency and the dosing of UCAN really change much, or what should people be thinking about when they're out there for a very, very long time?
No, I mean it's really it might change depending on if the intensity is a little bit slower. You might do it a serving every hour and a half, but it really doesn't. You have to experiment between doing a serving every hour to up to every 2 hours. If it's a lower intensity ultra type run, you might be able to do every 2 hours. It all depends. So that's where you gotta really try it out, and it only takes 1 or 2 runs to kind of figure out your dosing. Once you figured out how long it lasts, you just take it at the right intervals.
And because we talked about really the duration and the intensity being kind of most relevant in terms of the frequency of use of UCAN, we often find that people doing these ultra events. I know I was just at an ultra marathon this weekend, manning a water station, the El Scorcho 50K in Texas, where we were serving UCAN on course, and sometimes it's just amazing to see just how much people are just during these long races, how much they're shoving in them, and all the kind of the pretzels and the simple carbs, and the more they eat of them, the more they want. And the thing about it is, with many of these ultra races, the intensity is actually lower than the short races, right? You simply can't maintain that high intensity when it's an extremely long duration. So oftentimes we find ultra marathoners actually use less UCAN than somebody doing a shorter race because the intensity isn't as high. And as we talked about earlier, it's so much the amount of UCAN and the frequency of dosing is based so much on intensity. So it's something else to keep in mind. Now, one of the things to consider for any type of longer exercise or even a shorter workout when you're coming into the workout a little bit hungry is the UCAN with protein is a great option. We had some questions here as well about how to differentiate between the fuel and the UCAN with protein. The UCAN with protein is a great option to use pre or during these longer events. So it's 13 grams of protein per packet. It's about a 180 calorie serving, and we find that the protein will help curb that hunger in the stomach. So if you're somebody that struggles to take in a lot of liquid calories, or excuse me, struggles to take in solid foods and prefer to get your nutrition in the form of liquid calories, using the UCAN with protein during a long distance event, it's got the same amount of superstarch per serving as the UCAN fuel. So you're going to get that nice, steady burn of energy from the superstarch, and then you're also going to get the protein to help curb that hunger in the stomach. Hey, Seth, before we just jump to the next question, we've been here about an hour, and I just wanted to, as a thank you to everybody in the audience, just mention that you can save 15% on UCAN online at our online store with the code UCANLEARN. I am putting that in the chat right now with a link to our online store, but this will be good through the end of the week. So the code UCANLEARN for 15% off. We appreciate all of you investing your time, spending some time with us tonight, and wanting to chat more about UCAN. So we've talked a lot about endurance, Seth, but let's talk a little bit more about the daily use of UCAN. Nancy, who we had on earlier, asked, have you had feedback for using UCAN to control blood sugar other than exercise, such as using some UCAN with protein, during the middle of the night to stabilize blood sugar, during the night and the early morning? So you've done a lot of work with, trainers across the Lifetime Fitness gyms all over the country who are prescribing UCAN in a variety of different ways outside of endurance, which has been much of our focus here today. But I'd like to spend just the last 10 or 15 minutes here talking about other applications of UCAN. Can you speak to Nancy's question?
So the fact is that we were meant for a disease that very much relates to symptoms of diabetes, life-threatening hypoglycemia. This was meant to stabilize blood sugar. And, it's interesting, right? There are so many medications for diabetes that are meant to block carbohydrate absorption or slow carbohydrate absorption. And we're a food. We're a solution that really, and a food that releases carbohydrates slowly by itself. So when you think about it that way, it's just a healthier form of carbohydrate. It's a way you'd want carbohydrates in your body to act. You know, anytime I'm even thinking about having a toast, I'm like, I always wish the toast would act the way UCAN does. Um, so that's the difference. And you know, we actually partnered with a medical foods company, and you know, UCAN is paired with protein for patients with prediabetes and diabetes, and we've shown that we release carbohydrate slowly with a combination of 15 grams of superstarch and 15 grams of UCAN, 15 grams of protein in a product called Ultra Glucose Control, really releasing steadily over time. That red line is our blood sugar versus oatmeal. I mean, oatmeal, a notorious healthy food, is raising blood sugar in these folks who are overweight and have symptoms of prediabetes up almost 35 milligrams per deciliter. You see that blue line? That's a nice spike. Um, Whereas UCAN is keeping your blood sugar steady, much smaller rise in blood sugar, almost only 15 milligrams per deciliter, and then a nice steady release over time.
And Seth,
So we,
I think something else just to highlight on this curve is, and this is the study that Seth was referencing. So that again, just to reiterate, the UGC, the red line, is the product with UCAN and pea protein in it, and the blue curve is oatmeal. So when people experience the symptoms of a blood sugar crash, that fatigue, that hunger, it doesn't always mean that their blood sugar is below baseline, right? If you have that significant drop in blood sugar, even if your blood sugar is still above baseline, can you feel the same effects of a sugar crash?
exactly
Or I should say the same effects of low blood sugar. I guess what's happening is a sugar crash, but can you feel the same effects of low blood sugar?
right. You feel yourself coming down from it, and you know, and that's why carbohydrates cause you to overeat, where you're compensating from the brain hunger that's occurring because your blood sugar is dropping, so your brain's going, sugar's low, got to eat again, and you know, and that's why people, you know, you can have a soda, for example, your blood sugar is not going to drop so quickly, you know, it's going to drop, but you know, you'll feel, you know, after, you know, within that first hour, you'll start feeling like you need something else.
So let's talk about, we talk about UCAN in the context of, when you compare it to oatmeal, people start to realize, hey, this isn't the same thing as a gel, right? I mean, many people here might see us at their local running or local triathlon store, or might have heard of UCAN in the context of endurance, but this is truly so much more than just something for endurance. And what's interesting is I've been talking and in talking to a lot of different runners and triathletes over the course of the last several months. I've kind of started telling people, even though we were seeing here that UCAN can be more effective as stabilizing your energy than oatmeal. I've started telling people, think about UCAN as the sports nutrition form, or drinkable oatmeal in a sense, because it's the way people perceive oatmeal. Somebody eats oatmeal 2 hours before a long workout, or they eat it first thing in the morning because they perceive it to be something that's going to sustain them. And in that same realm, while UCAN's just more effective at doing that, but you should think about it in the same way. This is what you're ingesting or consume. This is what you're eating, essentially, before your workout to sustain you. It's what you're eating, in the middle of the day, again, at 3 o'clock when you might feel low or you might feel hungry, to sustain you. So that's really where UCAN fits in. It's a healthier form of carbohydrate. It's an energy sustaining food, and I think that's so important to realize. And in that context, Seth, again, you've worked with so many fitness professionals at Lifetime Fitness who have had tremendous success implementing UCAN as part of a weight loss regimen with their clients. So again, something we've had questions on is how should people think about UCAN in the context of weight loss, and how to implement it into their daily diet when they want to use it to lean out and lose some weight.
I mean, I think it's interesting. We've done some 30-day challenges, you know, throughout the country. Um, and the first thing that we've told people is that at lunch and dinner to consume vegetables before those two meals. So, for example, um, you know, if you start off with a meal with, you know, pretzels or pita chips, you're going to want to overeat because um, the food order dictates sometimes how much you eat. And when you start off with vegetables, you're building that bulk in the stomach. You're quieting down the stomach and the hunger. You're teaching yourself a habit of eating quality food first. So that's the first habit that just have to encourage everybody if health is the goal and weight loss is the goal. The next one is pretty simple. It's in between those meals. Mid-morning, a UCAN snack bar is just the ideal way to curb hunger mid-morning when especially you've got a few meetings or you don't know when lunch is going to hit you. It's that 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. snack, depending on when you've woken up and had breakfast. It's just that mid-morning snack. That's the prescription at between 10 a.m. And 11 a.m. in the morning. You enter lunch not feeling overwhelmed, not hungry. If that meeting runs late till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, you're not going to feel that low blood sugar issue. Um, you might want to have a UKID snack bar right before your 11 a.m. meeting if it's going to go a little longer. It's something like that. So again, snack bar is a great hour and a half, solution for you in terms of stabilizing blood sugar. That then 3 p.m. during the day, you've had your lunch, you've had your vegetables first, and had a veggie dominant lunch. 3 p.m. That's when you have 2 scoops of vanilla cream. That's when you have a packet of vanilla cream UCAN. That's the ideal solution at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon to curb hunger in the stomach with the protein, but to really curb hunger in the brain with the superstarch and take you into dinner with steady blood sugar. So you're not eating based on hunger in your brain that so often we eat over. That's when you reach for the pretzels. You overeat with whatever type of snack food you have, but you're going to eat and recognize that hunger in the stomach because your brain is steady. You'll really notice when you have true physical hunger, and that's the hunger you feel when your stomach's rumbling. So that's how it's UCAN mid-morning with the bar, UCAN and the protein version, the vanilla cream at 3 p.m. and lunch and dinner, veggies first. Do that for 30 days and get back to us.
That's fantastic, Seth. And even in this whole weight management application, as we've seen, just this explosion of popularity in the country and actually even in the world of running and triathlon. There's so many people now that are signing up for these races that that are using it as an avenue to get more fit and to lose weight. And this is something that really shocked me. But when we first started 4 or 5 years ago, traveling to all these running events and these expos and then talking to different folks. And I was just amazed by how many people, would come up to me and express that, hey, I gained 5 to 7 pounds during my marathon training. And it's kind of, at the time to me, was so counterintuitive because, these people would express, they would say to me, hey, this is the first marathon I've ever trained for. So you figure that, training for your marathon, if it's the first one, it's likely going to represent the hardest and the most consistently that you've worked out for a lot of people in their lives. And so I never understood that disconnect. How can you be training for so much, and how can you be training for something that's probably the hardest you've ever trained, and still, I mean, we're not just saying not lose weight, we're actually talking about gain weight. And so for endurance athletes, in terms of that weight gain when they're training, why is that occurring? I mean, why is this a problem? And again, this is not, I know this is not a problem isolated to just a few people, because I've heard it time and time again. And I've even read, articles and different things and heard from different coaches and folks that kind of will say that, losing weight and training for an endurance event just doesn't go together. Now, we've seen the entirely opposite thing to be true when people are training with UCAN, but taking a step back, what's the problem? Can we identify the problem? Why are so many endurance athletes gaining weight?
Well, it's simply that if you are matching the calories you're burning, you're going to be at a weight maintenance. But the blood sugar drop toward the end of a workout, especially the last half an hour. You might dig deep to get through it, but you'll be ravenous afterward. And it's that replenishment that you have afterward, and that brain hunger is causing you to overeat. And I think that's one of the main reasons we're overeating calories to compensate for the exercise.
Absolutely. And I think if you look at it, I mean, so many people to get through, if you were to follow the recommendations of any, traditional gel, they're really suggesting that for a 2 hour long run, you consume 4 to 5 gels based on the recommendation, 15 minutes before and then 2 gels, 1 to 2 gels every hour. So if somebody was to follow that literally, they had 3 or 4 gels during, 1 gel before. You're really talking about 400 to 500 calories of sugar just to get through your workout. And then what happens, like Seth said, when you're done, you're coming off that last gel and your blood sugar's dropped, and when you have low blood sugar, you're just going to want to consume more and more carbohydrate to raise your blood sugar back up. And all of you guys, I'm sure, who have trained for an endurance event, or have gone for had a tough workout, you can relate to that low blood sugar feeling when you just feel that ravenous hunger, and you're not reaching into your fridge and grabbing a handful of spinach, right? That's the reality. You're having quick, easy, and convenient foods, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. And so one of the things we see with UCAN, and that we've heard time and time again, is people commenting that they're simply just not as hungry when they get done with their workout. And it's really comes back to this blood sugar maintenance. When your blood sugar is more even post workout and you're not experiencing that sugar drop, the hunger is much more controlled, where you can come home and cook yourself a meal and make an intelligent food decision instead of just being a slave to those food cravings. So where does UCAN fit in here, Seth? If somebody's training for an endurance event, and they're looking to get lean at the same time, what is the application of UCAN?
Uh, I think it's, if there is a non-workout day, I know many folks work out every day. Um, I think one of those, one of those snacks, you have your pre-workout snack, and then if you're working out late in the afternoon, UCAN becomes your afternoon meal replacement and your pre-workout snack. If you're working out early morning, it's a scoop before, and then you might have that bar mid-morning. So that's the thing, is you can take, you could probably have UCAN, um, a bar mid-morning, the vanilla cream at 3 p.m., but just time either that, that afternoon shake before you work out, and if you're working out at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m., just have a scoop of UCAN before. You might end up having UCAN 3 times per day, but that's what you probably might need during your during on a training day.
Last one, Seth. Let's close it on this one. So we wanted to know the application. We had a few people ask about the application of UCAN for resistance training, and then as well as the application of UCAN for higher intensity training. And with the higher intensity training, there was a specific comment saying, wouldn't a higher intensity require fast burning carbs?
So the fact is that you have enough muscle glycogen in your body to provide you with the carbs you need. The reason that you've got glycogen in your muscle cells is so you can use it directly right away instead of it being in your bloodstream. Um, so you don't need, as long as you can maintain your blood sugar, you can maintain peak performance. Some high intensity resistance training is not even based on fast acting carb. It's actually based on um, other systems called your phosphocreatine system, more about ATP production rather than using glucose as a fuel. So you just need to have a scoop before your workouts. And listen, if you're someone that is looking to get in more calories during the training period, if you don't access your muscle glycogen as quickly as other people would, you could always have a scoop of UCAN before and sip on some fast acting carbs during. Um, that's an option for you. But I would still have UCAN as your base, especially for resistance training. That's my passion. That's what I do.
And that's an important point, right, Seth? So many people, look, if you, for whatever reason, whether it's carrying it, whether it's just mentally feeling safe, if you feel like you want to mix in some fast acting carbs later in the game, that should not at all preclude you from using UCAN as your pre-exercise fuel. And even for something like Ironman, we have so many people that are say, you know what, UCAN is going to carry me through the first 70 to 80% of the race, and then I might switch over to something else, because there's again a huge benefit in terms of preventing that low blood sugar bonk in the middle of the race, in terms of just loading your body with so much sugar that you feel bloated, and get the GI issues coming off the bike. I mean UCAN is just like the biggest thing we hear time and time again from athletes, from coaches, is the biggest variable and the biggest limiter to performance is often GI distress. And GI distress comes from 400 calories per hour, or 250, 300 calories per hour. That's what causes GI distress. You're simply putting in so much in your system that just sits there with the simple sugars. So it's, again, a lot of people have had success. Ed came on and talked about it. A lot of people have had great success, treating UCAN as kind of their primary or their exclusive fuel source, excuse me, I should say. But equal number have had success treating UCAN as the pillar of their training, which is the most important thing, and then as their primary fuel source on race day, and then perhaps switching over to something more fast acting towards the end. Um, Let's see, Seth. Last one I'm going to end you on is a question about the application of UCAN for a low carb, ketogenic type of diet. So, we've often heard people talk about, UCAN is the ideal carb for low carb. Why is that the case? Why are people on a low carb diet having so much success with UCAN, and why is it something that can be treated as an exception?
Yeah, I mean, because again, it's an exception because it's a carbohydrate with all the opposite effects. It's very much more acting like a fiber in your body that's absorbed as energy. It's got a muted and low insulin response. Many people go low carb to keep insulin low. We're a carbohydrate that keeps insulin low by itself. The application for ketogenic diet is before or after you work out, very much to give your body the blood sugar you need for especially higher intensity, going back to the resistance training. The majority of folks that are on low carb ketogenic diets that resistance train really emphasize using UCAN before their resistance training. And some, when they're ketogenic, they might have it, as a way to start their day or add it to a protein and fat shake as the carbohydrate source instead of looking for added fiber. But I would try it before and after exercise as a way to just start off on that low carb ketogenic diet as a base again for you.
Well, this is fantastic. We really couldn't do this if we didn't have so many compelling and great questions from all of you in the audience. So, but I know Seth and I definitely appreciate that. We appreciate everybody's thirst to learn about this stuff because we definitely understand that what we're telling you is flies in the face of a lot of what people have been saying, for the last many, many years in terms of the need for sugars and simple carbs. And we're just seeing time and time again that it's not healthy, it's not efficient, and, it really causes a lot of issues for people, both in terms of struggle to maintain their energy levels and struggle with GI issues. So I hope our passion came across. We truly believe that UCAN is something that represents a more effective, a healthier, more importantly, a healthier way to fuel and to maintain your energy. And again, there's really nothing else that works like UCAN. There's a million products out there, but if you really look at it, the majority of them are preaching the exact same thing. They're preaching quick energy. There's a bunch of varieties, but you're really left to make your choices based on flavor and format, not effectiveness or the way they deliver energy. So, I think UCAN represents the future. And for a lot of you, UCAN represents the present, which is fantastic. So with that said, you will be receiving a full recording of this after the webinar is over. I will include Seth's email again. Seth, the registered dietitian. I think his knowledge of all things nutrition came across, and I know I learn a lot from Seth every time we speak. I will include a link specifically to Seth's email. You'll have my email as well if you guys want to continue the discussion if you have any questions. And please do take advantage of the coupon. I'll include it again in the email, but you can learn at our online store for 15% off. That'll be good to the end of the week. I'm Varun Sriram. Seth, I'll let you have the last word. You got anything else for us?
Right. Thanks to everybody for listening. And remember, this is just the way you'd want a carbohydrate to act in your body. So thanks for listening.
For Seth Bronheim, I'm Varun Sriram. Have a great night, everybody.